Hey everyone, it's been quite a while since I've posted anything, but just as a little announcement that I wanted to add at the end of each video, I have been thinking about what ways I can reward you guys for such an amazing community that you've been and supporting my content over the past few years. I want to return the favor, and the only thing I can think of to do that I have the time or financial resources to do is Patreon. So on there you pay $10 a month for me to not just give you shout outs and credit of all the patrons that join at the end of each ASMR video on the YouTube channel, but also you get a chance to have an ASMR session with me every month. I will pick either a random or someone in the exact listing order of a patron every month for a Zoom or Skype call, and I will do whatever triggers they want me to do. Another thing that I'm willing to do is let you guys pick the triggers for monthly exclusive ASMR videos on Patreon itself. And I just gotta pull it up. I have it pulled up somewhere over here. Oh yeah, I also have early access to role plays that I'm willing to do for you guys. And I will especially try to do more makeup role plays. You guys really emphasize that, so not just early access to those, but also any other role play that I do on this channel. It seems to be getting the most attention. Anyways, that's about it as far as what I can offer you. Let me know what you think about the price. I've been told starting it out high like that isn't ideal, but I also wanted to see what you guys think and see what you guys think is a fair price. So with that being said, for the first 5 patrons who sign up, I will give you all, for only 2 months worth, weekly ASMR sessions with me. I will make sure I find the time and space to incorporate that as a possible idea for the first 5 patrons, and it will only be for the first 5 patrons. And like I said, let me know down below if you think it's too high or too low, what your preference would be. As always, thank you so much for the support you've given me the past few years, and for not leaving me when I stopped being consistent. And with that said, enjoy the video. Well, it's been a minute as usual. I'm really sorry I don't post on here as much as I want to, but I'm gonna try to change that. I can tell a lot of you guys are very willing to support me on Patreon, so I'm gonna keep going more regularly for that, hopefully. This video is gonna get started off by, this video is gonna be all about just me rambling on with what's happened the past year. Just generally speaking, it's gonna be about how I wound up getting not yet diagnosed, but very likely to be clinical depression. You can check out my video right here if you want to check out my autism and ADHD diagnoses and what that's like for me. I've had it all my life, so I don't really have anything to compare to as far as neurodivergent versus neurotypical, but I definitely can say this mood disorder that I seem to be reacting with to life tends to be more emotionally driven than I'm used to. That's not to say I've never been the more emotional type versus logical, but my emotions tend to come in spikes, up and then down, not waves. With depression, so far it seems to be waves. I keep flipping. I might as well put my hair up. I keep flipping it back. Anyways, let's get started with the story itself. So, back in 2021, I got a job at Carrabba's. I got a job at Carrabba's while I was still working at Hardee's. I think I've explained this before on my channel. You can check out the video in the description or in the card above if I've put it there at all. And that essentially saved me from going through any more, let's just say, constant stress. Stress so bad that if things didn't change, I would consider suicide. I've always been the kind to be like, no, life is too precious no matter how bad it gets to do that. So it was just for a moment. I'm fine now. I'm living today. But that's how bad the stress got at one point. Fast forward to January of 2022, I start working at Carrabba's alone. And then during that year, in the fall, I started college. A month before I started college, I got a job at Domino's somehow. The hours were starting to go down because it was slow season at Carrabba's. So I wasn't even looking for another job, but I wound up going to Domino's because they were desperate for people at the time. They didn't even have a full GM quite yet. And likely they're always going to be desperate for people. They hired me very easily because of an employee referral. He got his money for referring me to them. And something I didn't say at the beginning of the video. On this camera, these are the tights I'm wearing for this video. I'm not really wearing them for, I never really wore them for the whole day. Converse, no, Vans, I'm getting that mixed up. Vans, these are called A New Day from Target. Okay, enough of that. Where was I? Right. I got the job there. During that time, during 2022 and 2023, for the most part, they were my cloud 9 years as an adult, or as an 18 plus guy, or as an age of 18 plus guy. Fast forward to 2023 November, I got a job at Pizza Hut because I wanted to get away from a guy who was bugging me, who I didn't feel safe to be around anymore. Let's just say during that time, I really kind of, at least on a basic level, I learned the concept of you F around, you find out. The more you F around, the more you're going to find out. That is what I really had to learn to not do as much with that guy. I wound up distancing myself for quite a while from him. After rage applying for jobs between deliveries while I was still working there, I got the chance to get interviewed and then joined the team at Pizza Hut. The moment I got confirmed, I called them up at Domino's and said, not even asking for the manager to tell him this to their face, said, I'm not coming in, and I quit. Because I didn't even say why. Now here's where, now first off, that can be disrespectful in all sorts of ways, but for me, the way it affected me the most was the fact that later on Pizza Hut started cutting their labor enough to where I was working like 3 hours a week by the last month or so, before I found a job at Cracker Barrel middle of March. Now, I will say this, I definitely lucked out with that, considering the season of the year and how difficult it can be to find a job in Florida in general. Compared to some states, this would be quite a hellscape for trying to find a job. Like, nearly impossible. There's always people hiring, but they're always so picky, and there's just like so many people living here that there's not enough jobs to go around for everyone. That, combined with the competition between different applicants and trying to stand out in certain jobs other than being traditionally qualified, is so ridiculous to deal with. Back to my point though, the way I left Domino's was not just disrespectful, but when I was still looking for a job in between Pizza Hut and Cracker Barrel, I essentially like, one moment, gotta wake my computer up. Between Cracker Barrel and Pizza Hut, I asked for my job back. The GM would have to go through with the district manager and the other district manager. They would decide together. They said they would try to decide. It was a few days before I gave up on them completely and just thought they were gonna not respond to me in general. And ever since, they haven't. So I deserved that because of how I left them. And overall, it's just difficult to accept the fact that I threw away one of the best jobs I've ever had. Carrabba's is like second to Domino's, but Domino's is like up there because it was such an easy job. The only thing you were doing oftentimes was delivering. Most of my tips on average, no matter how busy or slow it got, was $50 every single night on average. Sometimes it would be lower, like significantly lower, like fall 2022, it was so low that it's almost like working a bad or even slow day at a restaurant as a server. So like 15 to 18 bucks. It's not bad. It's something, but it's not good either. I got like 50 bucks every single night like that, and it's just interesting, so interesting how I just threw it away. That, combined with the fact that I had so many emotional issues and all of them put up with me. Like, I would yell for no reason. I don't know why I would. It's just, when I look back at everything, I wasn't as mature as I am now, as year by year one matures if they're doing life right. But I also understand that I wasn't aware of what I had until I lost it, until I gave it up. Reminds me of that fateful moment in Shrek the Fourth, when he gave up his life to Rumpelstiltskin by trading his birthday, his very first birthday, the day he was born, for a day without his original life. And he had to go through a lot to reclaim what he once had. And for me, it's not even reclaiming what I once had. It's just building back up after I tore everything down. I don't even know why. And just thinking about it, thinking and speaking about all of this, it just, I'm telling you, it puts me in a low mood, and I can barely focus on what's going on around me, let alone what I'm talking about. Now, how did that give me depression? Well, it's just the fact that combined with what kind of quarreling that happened between me and my sister-in-law and brother. It's just stuff that happened one on top of another, and it just, see, I'm so lost. Like, my brain is kind of like turned off simply because I'm feeling overwhelmed with sadness about all of this. I don't even know if it's visible, but it's difficult to talk about all this stuff, not just because it's regrets of the past as far as how it feels vibe-wise to have depression, but also it's difficult to talk about because I can barely remember any of it when I'm trying to talk about it. See, I'm literally forgetting what was I even talking about. I literally can't even remember. I started with depression, Domino's, Pizza Hut, Cracker Barrel, siblings. Okay. My siblings, who moved back in with my parents while I'm still living here, we've been living together for about 2+ years, and it wasn't until last May when we had one of the worst fights I've at least ever had with any family member that I've been close to. And this turned out to be one where we're pretty much over it, but we left some scars on each other. Essentially nowadays, whenever for example, because she hates confrontation and she's experienced me with my violence threatening, out of character, but nowadays so not at the same time, because she had to deal with that during the worst of our fights. She now cannot confront me over text without getting my brother involved and making it a group chat. That, combined with the fact that she just doesn't she's just so bad at it, even worse than she used to be, because of her growing up with people yelling at her in an explosive, unpredictable manner whenever she brought up issues. They would always the family she grew up in, they would always stuff things down emotionally, and then when they were about to blow, they blew up in her face, and then calmed down in private, and then acted like everything was fine. And now she's picked up on that. That, coupled with some other things that happened in her past, makes her so incredibly fearful and hateful, or so incredibly fearful and against confrontation of any sort, that she would rather cut herself with a knife. The same way for me when it comes to, for example, who I used to be, what I looked like. I can't consume any of that, because I'll just look at someone who I believe deserves to be humiliated. That kind of self-hatred, that's not healthy. There's nothing I can do about that, because it's not like I literally don't believe I can fix anything like that. But the main thing for me is that when she gets triggered about having to confront me about anything, or whenever she doesn't communicate in a way that I need her to, that sets me off now more than anything else. And especially when I think about how she doesn't even admit anything of what happened between us is her fault, it makes me so mad. And especially makes me mad when Steven wants to defend me in private with her simply because, but she also doesn't want to have any of it. She doesn't hear any of it. And just overall, we trigger each other when we talk about, let's just say, dark, deep, horrible parts of our pasts. We know each other well enough to know about them. This time, I know to steer clear of them completely, likely for the rest of my life, never bringing it up again. I know about it already. That's all you need to do. You don't have to keep bringing it up, which is what I kept doing for whatever reason. And here's the biggest thing that started and sparked our fights in the first place. I was talking about how, isn't it interesting how I was talking about Harry Potter and the fact that I thought it was interesting he had enough courage to not be traumatized by any of the actual trauma he went through in the stories and the movies. She didn't make it clear enough. That she didn't want to talk about it because it is a trigger for her, especially when I use the word trauma all the time, or past, or whatever words that might bring up some memories, or even shrink some memories. For my case, I'm telling you, for her it brings up anxiety. For me it shrinks them because it just, memory loss is just a big thing, and I'll get into the symptoms in a minute. She, instead of telling me before here's what happened. She kept telling me, well, I believe that it's all just fake. I like to lean on the fact that it's magic so I can handle watching it. By that, she was trying to communicate, it's a trigger, it can be a trigger for me, but this is how I minimize that answer, and for whatever, it was my fault that I kept bringing it up. But at the same time, not so, because sometimes I get lost in my own head and it blinds me. And this is the autism aspect of it, by the way. Sometimes I get lost in my own head about what I want to talk about, so much so that I completely miss, just sometimes at least, because it still happens to this day, the cues of her not wanting to talk about it ever, simply because it's a trigger for her. I'm blind to that fact simply because I keep wanting to talk about it. And by the time she realized I needed a firm stop talking about this, she pretty much exploded on me. She was like, look, I'm starting to freak out right now, okay? Stop talking about this. And because I didn't recognize that for whatever reason, why am I saying that? It's the autism. She didn't recognize that was a part of what I needed in that moment, that she needed that to be said the first time instead of the fifth or sixth time, however many times she had to reiterate. I took that as ineffective communication. I get blamed for it because I was fixating too much, which I do out of instinct. So it's not fully my fault when I do that. Enough to not recognize that she needed a topic change if I was going to talk to her. And after that, she walked away upstairs, tried to leave the room so that she could calm down. I tried to text her the problem, and because, in my opinion at least, people are too stupid to understand the nuances of everything in every little detail of a piece of communication. She didn't understand that. She blatantly just pushed against it somehow. I don't even fully remember how she did, but she did. And from there, it got worse, so much worse, before it got better. And now that plus the fact that I'm still trying to look for a second job, my parents are pressuring me because I owe them money, and I'm just like, I can only do so much, especially with this job market and the fact that no one is going to hire people in the restaurant industry, which is where I have the most experience in, during summer. I was lucky to be able to find 2 more applications to apply to today. And I'm trying to do 1 per day, but I don't even know if I'm going to find anything on Wednesday when I go back to apply some more. They're pressuring me to get a second job, and I appreciate the intent, but the fact that they're saying you do it or you get kicked out of the house, I'm sorry, but that's just stupid. All of these things is just like how the years kicked my behind. And as far as the symptoms I've experienced with what seems to be depression, I think it's just, at first it started out as a lot of anger, during the times when I was quarreling with my siblings, enough to where I wanted to take pleasure in doing so, or watching someone else beat my brother to smithereens. These violent thoughts are not easily said to anyone, but and I might get a lot of hate from this, but I don't care. I just don't. Enough to where it's not even going to be accepted. If you comment a hate comment under this video, I'm straight up going to delete you and block you from my channel. This is a very vulnerable thing, and if you even think about trying to take this the wrong way, automatically blocked. No. Back to what I'm saying, though. Bouts of anger against things that trigger me. For her, it's always anxiety whenever she's triggered. For me, it's always anger. And that's why we kind of clashed a lot. And then just, emotions coming and going in waves rather than spikes, which is what I'm used to from ADHD mood swings. Whenever I'm feeling depressed, I become more emotionally numb than anything else. It's difficult for me to cry it off like it used to be when it was just ADHD and autism. Pardon my niece if you can hear her. I can't really do anything about it. Although I will wait a little bit. I'm done waiting. I'm just gonna try to speak over her. I just. What am I talking about? Symptoms. Anger. That's the biggest thing whenever I get triggered. I also get triggered in just emotional numbness, like I said. I go into this state of not barely being able to understand everything around me. I get so emotional that my senses start to shut down. I see what's going on around me, but it doesn't register as easily. 3, memory loss. Whenever I do go into it, there's so little I remember whenever I'm like hyper. Or no, there's so little I remember whenever from what happened during an episode, and unless it's recorded, there's no chance of me actually remembering. Like, I didn't even fully remember how long I was going through the anger phase until my mother had to start listening to me get every bit of violent thought off my chest. And it's concerning to listen to someone talking about all this, but at the same time, it's just... it's the truth. And this is what it's like living with mental illnesses. Another thing... hold on a minute. Anger, emotional numbness, memory loss. Oh yeah, sometimes I find it difficult concentrating on people's words. Sometimes my brain just shuts off and then I have to ask people to repeat themselves. 5, increase in appetite. So to overcompensate, I've been working out a good bit. It's only been like 2 weeks, so there's not going to be a noticeable difference at all. 6, I'd like to say I know there's more. Hold on a minute, I gotta grab my journal. It says more if there is more. Here's the list I was able to... oh, here it is. Yeah. Here's the list of stuff I found as far as symptoms. Irritability, anger, and triggered towards certain authoritative and harsh tones to the voice, wavering and fluctuating levels of motivation. General perspective of life doesn't matter as the main root for these fluctuations in motivation. Memory loss and generally unable to remember certain things while feeling depressed or angry. 6, difficulty concentrating on people's words. And finally, 7, an increase in appetite. That's all that I could list there. This has been my journey as far as how I've come to realize I might have depression. And it makes sense as far as the possibility of me being prone to it in general, because I don't have a positive outlook on life. I never have. My past is always about me being the problem, almost like having a toddler brain. And the only thing different between a toddler brain and an adult brain like mine is the fact that you're more intelligent with equally as many impulses as a toddler. So a battle between interest versus intent every single day. And now, because of the impulse to leave Domino's the way I did, feeling nervous and not listening to those nerves when I was attempting it, I now might have clinical depression. And now, and it's not like it's not like it's bad in general, but it is so different, so incredibly different of an experience to what I've been diagnosed with since a very, very early age. Thankfully, I'm getting treatment for, whatever emotional instabilities I might be going through thanks to my psychiatrist. But it would feel nice if I had... Good grief, what is going on in my body today? It would be nice if I had an actual diagnosis, which is what I'm going to find out about tomorrow. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, thumbs up and subscribe, I guess. I really don't know why you would after such a video, but hey, you got to know me a little bit better, what I've been going through, and I hope you stick around for more ASMR content like this, because thanks to your support on Patreon, it's going to be so much easier to give you guys what you want, what I've given you years ago, and I hope you stick around. Thank you.